was a very sad, emotional, devastating scene around Charlottesville towards the end of the football season last year. A former member of the football team was accused and then convicted of opening fire on a charter bus, killing 3 football players, injuring 1 more, and then injuring another student as well. Rest in peace to Lavelle Davis, to Sean Perry, and Devin Chandler. You will be remembered greatly around this Virginia program throughout this football season, and remembered by those around the nation as well. So my thoughts, prayers, and feelings and everything go out to this Virginia program this year. And there's no easy way to transition to this, but as it relates to the football team this year, well, it could be another struggling year for Tony Elliott's group. Will this team surprise people and start to get back towards the top of the ACC, or is this going to be another rough year, and are we going to have a long rebuilding process to wait in Charlottesville? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel, previewing, predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams. Means I'm doing your favorite team, so hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. But in case you can't, well, you can support my channel in more ways than just that. You're doing one by watching the video. You can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else to help interact and support the channel. It's going to be a very emotional year for this Virginia football program. Let's dive in and predict it. How do we do things around here? Well, we go through a roster overview, look at who's leaving the team, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Cavalier football schedule and giving it a game-by-game preview and prediction. So let's predict Virginia football in 2023. The quarterback room here, you do lose Brennan Armstrong. Now, his stats last season, I do not think were indicative of at all of how he can play. I think he's a great talent. He's gone over to NC State, and I think he'll be a really good quarterback for them there. But I'll read the stat line anyway. Last season, 2,210 yards, 7 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. I believe that stat line is going to get a whole lot better with Dave Doran's, my apologies, NC State Wolfpack. So who will play the quarterback position now that Brendan Armstrong is gone? Well, Jay Woolfolk does come back, but you do get a 3-star transfer coming over from Monmouth by the name of Tony Muskett. I believe he will be your starter. If not, it will be Woolfolk who will end up getting that start. However, Virginia fans, you can tell me down below, but college football fans, your guess is as good as mine. My belief is it'll be Tony Muskett, but again, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me to see Woolfolk trot out under center for the first snaps of 2023. Running back room, well, hey, you return pretty much everybody. Paris Jones is your leading rusher among running backs. If I did not say earlier, Brendan Armstrong was the leading rusher on this team last season, so you do lose that. 371 yards, 6 touchdowns for Armstrong. But Paris Jones, Mike Hollins, who was the one football player that was injured, not killed in that tragic event. He's made a full recovery, should play football this year. And then Xavier Brown. Those were your top 3 rushers among running backs last year. And you return almost 800 yards of production within those 3 guys. You also get a pretty solid transfer here, a 3-star coming over from Clemson. It's Kobe Pace. In the wide receiver room, well, your top 3 leading receivers are going to be gone. Keaton Thompson had 579 yards on 53 catches. Really was a do-it-all guy for this team. Dontavian Wicks had 430 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then I've already mentioned Lavelle Davis's name, who was tragically killed. He was the 3rd leading receiver on this team last season. And then Billy Kemp, who was down the list quite a bit, but could turn into a number 1 receiver over at the University of Nebraska. You are going to return guys like Demick Starling and Malachi Fields, and a 3-star transfer coming over from Northwestern in Malik Washington should give a boost to that wide receiver room, but they lost a lot of talent to be able to replace like that. In the tight end room, you do return Grant Mish, Sackett Wood, and some other names that are not on the board. And on the offensive line, John Paul Flores, Jonathan Leach, and Derek Devine are all gone. But Ty Furnish, Mikhail Boley are back, as well as some transfers coming over to this program. Jimmy Christ and Ugana Nana. Probably said that last name wrong, so I apologize for any mispronunciations, but there is your Cavalier offense. You lost a lot of weapons with Brennan Armstrong. You lost a lot of weapons in that wide receiver room. You do get a lot in running back, in tight end, returning-wise, as well as some transfers, but is quarterback play, is the passing game going to be enough to spark this offense? We will see. Defensively, what can we expect from this team? Well, on the defensive line, you got a whole lot of players returning to this team. Aaron Falmouy had 4.5 sacks last year, was the leading tackler among defensive linemen last year and a top 10 tackler for this team. Chico Bennett, I also believe, was a top 10 tackler, if not top 15 tackler for sure. Led the team with 7 sacks last year. He's coming back, as well as Cam Butler, Jameer Carter, and if you go down to the second line, Paul Akere and Ben Smiley, all of them come back to this defensive line. Akere with 4 sacks last year. That was 4th on the team last season. So a lot of returning production on this defensive line for Virginia. In the linebacking unit, though, they are not as lucky. Your leading tackler in Nick Jackson, 104 tackles, second on the team with 5 sacks, 4 passes defended. He is going to be gone, as well as Hunter Stewart, who is a pretty solid player in his own right there for this team. However, then, when you go ahead and take a look at who comes back, well, James Jackson is going to be able to come back. James Jackson, third leading tackler on this team last year with 60 tackles. And then Josh Ahern will also be coming back to this team. 26 tackles and a sack for him last season, among some more names in the linebacking unit that I did not mention. Defensive back-wise, well, you lose 2 pretty solid players. Fentrell Cypress, very highly rated transfer, has gone on to Florida State, had 13 passes defended last year. And then Anthony Johnson had 12 passes defended last year and led this Cavalier defense with 2 interceptions last season. That is some monster production leaving that defensive back room. I also believe they were top 10 tacklers for this team last season. Johnson was a top 5 tackler, and Cypress, again, a top 10 tackler for that team. You do return guys like Jonas Sanker, Antonio Clary, Cohen King, and Langston Long, as well as getting some transfers in like Malcolm Green, Tavon Kyle, and some others there as well. This team loses a lot of talent now. There are some good returning pieces in places, but especially with quarterback play, if that cannot be up to standard, if this offense can't improve in ways, if this defense can't improve in ways, it's going to be another struggling year for Tony Elliott, who is your head coach. Your offensive coordinator is Des Kitchings, and your defensive coordinator is John Rudzinski. As we take a look at the Cavalier football schedule for 2023, any game at home is going to be underlined. Any game on the road will be in italics or the slanted text, and neutral site games are listed accordingly. Any game in green is a game I see the Cavaliers winning easily. Any game in yellow is a game where, okay, maybe maybe the other team's able to put up a fight, or it's a very close back and forth game, but Virginia's going to be able to win, and red is a loss. That first game of the year is going to be really tough for Virginia. I do not see them beating Tennessee. Tennessee is going to be a really good football team this year. Yes, Hendon Hooker is gone, but Joe Milton's got one of the biggest arms in all of college football. That's going to be a very tough game for Virginia to go ahead and win. I like the Volunteers' chances to be able to get that one done. James Madison is a very interesting game here. I'm going to go ahead and give Virginia the win in this one, although do not be surprised at all if James Madison is able to pull this win out. That team, coming from the FCS ranks 2 years ago in the last year as an FBS program. They were really successful as an FCS program. Into FBS, they transitioned really well. I believe had an 8-3, 7-4 season. You only play 11 games your first year in. But James Madison, very, very good program, very well coached, very good roster. That's going to be a team to watch this season out of the Sun Belt Conference. Virginia, unlucky draw there with all the struggles and emotions going on with this program. That's a very tough matchup. I see them winning a close game, but it wouldn't surprise me to see James Madison win that one. And then on the road against Maryland, I don't think the Cavaliers are going to win that one. Now, if the Cavalier offense can really start to find things like that, if they can start to find things the first week of the season, maybe this can be a pretty close and competitive game. I think it will be in general. Maryland's defense has not really been up to standard the past few seasons, but the offense is loaded. They got a lot of great skill position weapons, probably a top 25 quarterback in the entire nation in Talia Tagovailoa. That's a very good Maryland offense. I think they're going to give it to this Virginia defense. Maryland will be able to win. NC State, I think, will pick up a win against Virginia as well. I just don't see Virginia being able to match the physicality, especially that NC State is going to bring on the defensive end. And, hey, that's facing your former quarterback there. Brennan Armstrong is coming back to Charlottesville. This time, playing for the NC State Wolfpack. I think he's got too many weapons for this Virginia defense to handle, and that defense can play a little too physical. I like NC State in that matchup. On the road against Boston College, hey, I like the Eagles in that one there at Chestnut Hill, Emmett Moorhead. Don't be surprised if that's a name you start hearing more and more as the season goes along. A potential breakout candidate at the quarterback position now that Phil Dracovic has moved on to play for the Pittsburgh Panthers. There are still a lot of solid weapons there with that Boston College program. Defensively, again, some things to work on, and that rushing attack has got to get better, but I do believe they are the better team than the Virginia Cavaliers. I believe they're going to go ahead and win that game. This may be the only game on Virginia's schedule. Now, you could argue James Madison, maybe some of the ACC programs, but this is going to be a game right here, arguably, where Virginia is favored. Maybe the one and only time they're going to be favored all year. They'll probably end up being favored against James Madison, but this should be an easy win for the Virginia Cavaliers. Sorry, frog in my throat. William and Mary is an FCS team. I don't think they're a very good one at that. My knowledge on William and Mary, arguably, or not even arguably, admittedly, there was the word I was looking for, is limited. However, I do think Virginia, being an FCS Power 5 program, they're going to go ahead and win that game. So then you get your bye week in the half of the season. Okay, 2 wins through the first half is not too great, but it's not terrible considering this Virginia program. On the road against North Carolina, though, I mean, this second half of the schedule is tough. On the road against North Carolina to start out that stretch. And again, much like with Maryland and Tennessee, North Carolina's got way too much offensive firepower. Now, that defense was atrocious last season, and I have faith that it'll get better this year. Will it still be up to standard of an ACC contender? Maybe a sneaky chance of the college football playoff, question mark. I don't see that necessarily being the case, but North Carolina's defense is going to get better, but that offense is too explosive. Is the reason why North Carolina wins this game. Virginia will also not go on the road and beat Miami. Miami's got Tyler Van Dyke coming back, setting him up with a new offensive coordinator to hopefully be able to spark his talent back up. Had a very, very unsuccessful and down year last season. Miami had a lot of injuries last year. If they can stay healthy with all the transfers they have coming in, that's going to be a solid team there as well. Georgia Tech is up here next at home, and I think the Yellow Jackets have the opportunity to surprise some people this year. Yes, Jeff Sims is gone. Yes, there's a lot of talent leaving that team, but Brent Key is there as the new head coach. They are bringing in a lot of talent through the transfer portal, especially in the pass-catching unit. Lots of transfers over from Georgia, like Dominic Blaylock, and a tight end who will start for that team, whose name, as of right now, is slipping my mind. I apologize, but Georgia Tech's got a lot of good offensive talent. Defensively, I think they'll be able to match up well with Virginia as well. So I got Georgia Tech being able to go on the road, win that game, although that definitely is a winnable game for the Virginia Cavaliers. And then on the road at Louisville, don't see them winning this one either. Louisville is bringing Jeff Brom in to be the head coach. He just won a Big Ten West title with the Purdue Boilermakers, bringing in a familiar face at quarterback with Jack Plummer. Played a year at Cal, but used to play for Jeff Brom at Purdue until Aiden O'Connell ended up taking over that program. Jeff Brom, a very experienced, very successful head coach. He's bringing a lot of transfers into that program. I think Louisville's going to be pretty successful this year. That's a potential ACC sleeper. Virginia will lose that game. I also believe they will lose to Duke. Duke, again, got too much offensive firepower. I just do not have a lot of faith in this Virginia defense. Now, maybe that defensive line, I haven't really mentioned this, but maybe that defensive line is going to be able to give pressure to these opposing quarterbacks, but Duke returns pretty much everybody offensively. That defensive line for Duke as well is going to be loaded. Yes, there's question marks in the rest of that defense as well, but Duke, I think, again, comes down to the offensive firepower, and for me, Duke is the clear winner in that category. But then you get your last game of the year at home, rivalry game against Virginia Tech. The emotions of this season are going to ride high all year long. This is going to be a rivalry game that may not mean a lot on the national stage, but I think is going to mean a lot to these Virginia Cavaliers. I see them winning one ACC game this year, and I think they get it done against the Virginia Tech Hokies, against their rival. I think that's going to be a very emotional game. You get the game at home. I think it's a game that Virginia goes ahead and wins, which leads me to a record of 3-9. So another struggle year. Now, again, they could ride the emotion of whatever happens to they could ride the emotion of the tragic event that just happened just at the end of last football season, all the way to maybe a 7, possibly 8-win season. But there's just too many question marks on this team for me. They project as one of the worst teams in Power 5. I got them sitting at 3-9. So let me know what you guys think about this team in the comment section below. But ACC predictions are done. Hey, remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.